Well, in rents on cold storage space, there's a lot more infrastructure. Developers and owners are putting a lot more money into these buildings, but rents are more than double what you would get in a normal, just regular industrial building if you're going on the cold storage side.
That's right.
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. You have Bill Condon and Matt McGregor. We're doing a 5-minute Friday today on the cold storage boom. It's not a topic that a lot of people talk about right now, but there's a lot of demand and the vacancy is almost 0%.
Well, zero here.
Yeah,
right?
Zero here.
And there's national brokers that are just cold storage guys.
Yeah.
Right? That was a discipline that I don't think existed 10 years ago, or there was a guy or two doing it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Now every company has a cold storage team.
Yeah, food group, and then within that, there's a cold storage team.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then now there's funds specifically for cold storage, right? Just to place in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about the local requirement, because the reason why we're doing this podcast is we just had a requirement that we couldn't land.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. It was tough. So there was no real existing options that are out there.
No speculative empty cold storage. To your point, 0% vacancy.
Yeah. And so oftentimes I think these owners, these developers that are in this space, they have their list of tenants that they usually work with.
Yes.
And they would love to structure a build-to-suit.
Absolutely.
Anybody will do that. Long-term build-to-suit, they build it out, they got their plan, they go. But the question is, should landlord, given where the market is and the demand for cold storage, should developers be building that on a spec basis? Because there is risk there.
There's certainly risk, but when we faced, and we had kind of a dual requirement, a 200 and a 400,000 square foot cold storage requirement. There's only one building being spec. REA and Jeff and team have it out in Emerson Lake.
Yep.
A couple 100,000 feet that they're going to build spec. That was really the only one that you could even bid on, or you had to go to the direct with the cold storage companies for more full service.
That's right.
Where you're saying, hey, we'll lease 200,000 feet with you. By the way, it didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So to the point, even in those, there was no capacity to take this business on. None.
Yeah.
I called everybody.
Right.
Lineage, Versical, everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody had capacity to take this business on.
Well, in rents on cold storage space, there's a lot more infrastructure. Developers and owners are putting a lot more money into these buildings, but rents are more than double what you would get in a normal, just regular industrial building if you're going on the cold storage side.
That's right. Well, what we saw out there was, if you took a building that we looked at for cold storage, it was, say, $275 a foot for that building.
On a monthly basis.
On a
yep.
monthly basis. Versus that building in today's market might get 95 cents, a buck, maybe?
Yeah. So
if it was just shell. So depending on what that infrastructure costs, I would say, yes, build that spec.
What do you think about, what's driving the cold storage demand?
Certainly a change in consumer demand related with fresh foods and e-commerce related with fresh foods, and unfortunately, massive pharmaceuticals. Right. So those are the two major drivers that continue. You're seeing more and more pharmaceuticals, some good, some bad, right? But you're seeing a higher demand for that, and that needs to be temperature controlled. And you're seeing a massive change in fresh foods that are flash frozen fresh foods.
I mean, certainly if you look at our careers over the last 20 years, right? Like you've seen that cold storage demand just continue to increase. And I would say really over the last 5 to 7 years, there's specialized food groups like you mentioned. There's more demand from tenants. There's more investors that are playing in the space. And so I think we are going to start seeing more spec development in the cold storage space.
We have to, right? I mean, when's the last time we saw a spec? And we've seen several torn down now because those facilities were built in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and are no longer efficient. So they're just tearing them down and they're very expensive to replace, right?
Yeah.
So we saw one developed in that SeaTac market 6-7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was the last spec one that I recall seeing. And then you've had a couple of build-to-suits for company. Versical did one in Tacoma. Trident Seafood did their own.
Yeah.
Right? But you haven't had a spec one go up in 8 or 10 years.
Well, and you know as well as I do, if you bring out a building that has any sort of cooler freezer component to it, you hear from all the same groups, all the food groups that have a need for it.
Yes.
And then more often than not, that specific unit build out doesn't work for the new requirement.
And those are usually because they're a small freezer set to a specific need.
It's just a rare
versus
occasion.
A true cold storage
Correct.
where everything's insulated.
Yeah, but just to illustrate the demand, you send anything out with a frozen cooler aspect, and you're going to hear from those groups, hoping that it would fit.
Yes. I think if somebody built out, call it a 250, 300,000 foot cold storage building, almost anywhere in our market, because I think it's a little less location driven than other buildings, that I think you would not have a problem leasing it based on what we saw.
Well, and the other part of that is I agree with you, you probably wouldn't, but even if you put in some extra downtime, the upside that you get from the increased rents,
that's right,
and knowing how to do it,
and the stickiness of that tenant.
They're there
it's not
forever.
Like they're jumping ship to the next desperate landlord. Right.
So maybe we should do that. Maybe we should build a Spec 300.
Go.
So we'll continue to keep an eye on the cold storage boom and expect it certainly to continue.
Happy Friday.